Welcome to Canada's Court. I'm your host, Philip Drost. Well, a lot can change in a week. We went from excitement over the Raptors finally winning 3 games in a row and earning the promised pizza party to Scottie Barnes being out indefinitely with a fractured hand. We're recording this on Monday following the Raptors' win over the Charlotte Hornets. In that game, Jakob Poeltl also went out with an injury. Savanna Hamilton is the Raptors sideline reporter for Sportsnet. She's also the host of Swish. Savanna, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
First of all, you were there. You were sidelined for the Jakob Poeltl injury last night. It's a little early, obviously, but any indication on how serious that was?
Yeah, no, I don't have any updates with that just yet. It's just more so finding out later. Obviously he dislocated his pinky, but it is not fractured, so that's a positive. So we'll see what the timeline's like later.
How sharp of a mood shift was it from the Raptors? You know, last week we were celebrating the 3 games in a row. Everyone was talking about what you'd have on your pizza to Scottie Barnes hurting his hand and that loss against Golden State.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this group of guys in general, they're actually really positive. And so I don't know if it's much of a mood shift, more of like a adjustment to like the reality of the situation. And just even talking to Ochai, he was like, it happened. We just have to move on and kind of like get to know this group and how this group can play together without the franchise player, essentially. And so I thought that was a pretty good perspective that he shared. But in terms of like just like how the mood in the locker room, I think everybody just knows what the circumstances are. And they know that they have to move accordingly, and some people will be asked to play make maybe a little bit more than what they're used to. And then also they all have to lock in on defense, but I don't think that anybody was depressed or anything. Not that I saw,
Gotcha.
not that I felt, at least. I just think they're like, okay, gotta step up now.
So yeah, that's what every coach and every player will say at this time: next man up. Who do you think is the next man up? Who's got to do the more playmaking here going forward?
I think that as long as everybody sharpens what they already have, it's going to be a win by committee. And I think even last game against Charlotte, that was a total win by committee. There's at one point I was thinking about doing a walk-off interview with Ochai instead, but then, Emmanuel quickly hit those free throws down the stretch that locked and put away the game. And he was also playing really well, but then you could make a case for RJ Barrett playing really, really well as well. Cause I believe he had a double-double, if not close to. And just a lot of guys kind of just up their game. I know that if you look at Kelly Olynyk, Grady, everybody, they're all within their element. So I just think that it's about fine tuning and sharpening out what they already have, because they're already a pretty well-rounded team now. Remember last year, there was lots of complaints about, oh, there's no shooters, there's no big man, blah blah blah. Well, we have a shooter in Grady, we have a big man, especially if Yak comes back, but regardless, we still have Kelly Olynyk and stuff like that. So I feel like it's just a matter of okay, let's just all come together and bring whatever you already have on the table, but then just refine it even more.
And one of the benefits is, and you kind of mentioned it already, but it's not like the Raptors were playing for the championship this season. It's not like, their hopes of winning it all are down the drain. So it is a bit more of a development year. And now, while you wanted to see the team play with Scottie Barnes and see how everyone fit around that, you're going to see how other players, like you said, are able to, excel in different roles and maybe see what they look like with different opportunities. Because when the Raptors are hoping to be, contenders, they're going to need some of these players like Ochai Agbaji and RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly to have big games without Scottie Barnes in moments, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's exactly what Ochai's mentality was going into last night's game. He told me that he wanted to be offensively aggressive and let loose and kind of leave it all out there. And so I think that's exactly what we got. His stat line wasn't, if you look at his field goal attempts to makes, not the best. But at the end of the day, you could just tell that he was trying to give a little extra. And I think sometimes just to be comfortable on the floor, you have to take some of those shots. And I would say this, I didn't think that any of his shots were necessarily bad shots. Some of them just didn't go in. And so I think that's kind of speaks volumes. And I think this is actually a great opportunity for development for the core without Scottie. I mean, we're still hoping Scottie develops like to a certain extent too. But like without him, it kind of forces everybody to like be better when he does join. So now it's like everybody's like leveled up, and then like the star player comes back. So I think it's still a great opportunity, but definitely Ochai, especially because we're still getting to know what his game is like. He calls himself a 3-and-D player. He was a little inconsistent from three last night, but he has had games where he's like really hit the three ball well against Atlanta. And so I think that's what we're kind of just waiting for, everything to kind of tie in.
And what's been really nice, besides the 3-and-D, he's been cutting really well, and he's getting some nice buckets from players like Kelly Olynyk, who's seen him on some great cuts. So that's a real positive too. Speaking of positives, we did get to see the Raptors win those 3 games in a row, and of course Darko promising the team pizza. And so I got to ask, if you were in charge of putting the call in for the pizza order for Darko, where are you ordering from, and what are you ordering?
I did not put the call in from my however, I will say that the media pizza that Darko bought for us in the media room was from this place called Maker. Maker.
I love Maker. Yeah.
It was really, really good. And so
Nice.
I allowed myself to have one slice because I am trying to do this whole healthy eating binge thing. But like I couldn't resist like just one slice of Maker. Won't kill me. So
No.
I think I'm pretty sure he got the players. I don't know if it was Maker, but I'm pretty sure if he got it for us, he probably got it for the players as well. So
makes sense. I remember when I was in high school, a coach promising us Dairy Queen blizzards if we took a charge. I think that was the strangest bribe I've ever received. I took 0 charges, so that wasn't any good for me. But have you ever had any like weird bribes from a coach to try and get you to do something on the court?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think I had a blizzard challenge too, which it wasn't
really?
for charge, it was for something else. But outside of, I think it was like diving on the floor for loose balls or something like that. But outside of that, the one in university that was like definitely sticks to my mind was like booster juice. So like if you hit a shot from half court in a game, you get a booster juice. So I can't say that I've ever did that or done that. However, I've had like 2 or 3 teammates that did do that. So they definitely got their booster juice. So it was good.
That's a bit of a low stakes promise. You're not too worried about every player hitting a half court shot every game.
Exactly.
Well, back to the Raptors now. So overall, as of recording this, the Raptors have won 4 of their last 6, which may not seem amazing, but it's pretty good for a team that's 22-38. What's kind of different that we're seeing here? I mean, the results are clearly better than they have been earlier in the season. Is it just kind of these new players that the Raptors have traded for kind of finally starting to gel and find the rhythm?
Yeah, I think before Scottie got injured, they went on that 3-game win streak, and yeah, I think as simple as exactly that, they were just starting to gel. They also had practice time. That's something that they all emphasized to me. Like I tried to, get them to like, okay, what's the secret sauce? Like what's working now? Like, and these are not like awful teams like that they won against. It was like Brooklyn, Atlanta, and Indiana. Indiana probably being the most like, that's like a really solid win, especially against Pascal. But, they all chalked it up to like, no, like literally like we just haven't had time to practice together. And so they've had 3 practices post All-Star at that time at least. And then so they're like that went a long way for them because they're able to like get familiar with the plays, understand their defensive schemes a little bit more. There's so much more stuff that they're able to pick up on. And then also like they even through practice just get to know each other better. So it's like, oh, I didn't know that RJ wants the ball here, or this is how he likes his screen set there. Like there's stuff that like so finite, like details of basketball, but it really makes a big difference when like you're trying to win games and get on a court. So
one of the other big storylines lately has been how Grady Dick has played. He's shooting way better than the start of the season, moving off the ball well, getting to the rim. What have you liked from what you've seen there?
Yeah, Grady is just like absolutely incredible. Um, in terms of that turnaround that he really like had. You could tell that the entire time, through the ups and downs, he was always committed. Um, if he ever was disheartened, he never showed it. Um, I talked to him pretty early in the season. I used to call them my Grady check-ins, my biweekly Grady check-ins. Um, and so I'd sit down with him and be like, "How's it going? Like, who's helping you? Tell me a little bit more about your program." And he was really committed from the jump to like just putting on more muscle. Which I mean, I don't know if you guys can notice, but like I see it. I don't know. For me, it's clear as day that I'm seeing muscle striations in his shoulders, especially now that wasn't there before. And that's like, and he even credits his trainer Johnny Lee, which Johnny's amazing. He's obviously an NBA trainer for a reason. And then so outside of that though, like he got his reps in the G League and he wasn't exactly putting up amazing numbers in the G League either. Like, but I think for that it was more so a way to like, hey, we're not even going to be looking at your stat line here. Just let her rip, essentially. Let her rip, get everything out, like, and then implement the things that we're teaching you at the Raptors level into the G League, and then we'll like slowly incorporate you back. But he definitely got his incorporation call more so when the trades were happening as well. So, OG got traded towards the end of December there. And so we saw a little bit more Grady, which is funny because he's not like he's an OG replacement, but like we
Hmm.
just saw a little bit more time available. And so Grady kind of stepped into that in January. And I think, I mean, I can't put words in Grady's mouth, but I can imagine he probably saw it as an opportunity to, know that could showcase himself better. And it's interesting. I talked to his parents in Oklahoma, and his mom told me that like when they're having phone calls, like he is so convinced that every shot's going in, so he's confused when it doesn't. And I
Hmm.
think that is like the confidence that like honestly like you can't buy. Like that's the confidence that every young player should really have. That's like that once again that OG confidence. I don't shoot to miss, and so that's I think that's the promising part about Grady is that throughout this entire rookie season, he has just been so composed, still like confidence unwavered. Like I haven't noticed any difference in his confidence. I think there's just a difference in his comfortability. He told me
Mm.
that he was getting really like excitement and a bit more nervousness energy when he was on the court. Once again, not confidence, just more like
Mhm.
a lot of excitement. And now
Mhm.
he's kind of like settling a little bit more. Like now it's getting a bit more like regulated. Um, and yeah, like he's shooting almost like 60% right now from the corner three, which is insane. And then just in general, he's almost about like, what is he, like 50 something percent from three in general? Like, I don't know if you could get a better shooter in the NBA right now that's shooting those percentages.
How big is that? Because I know a lot of fans going in. If you, I talked to one friend of mine who said, my hope for the season was I hope Scottie Barnes is an all star, and I hope Grady Dick develops. So wins and losses aside, we've reached that. How like the way Grady Dick has developed. I mean, the start of the season, obviously, we talked about it wasn't what he hoped for, but to see that he has developed, and it does look like he could be an important piece for the Raptors. How big is that? Especially like it's still early on. I mean, he's still, this is just his first season and his first really huge run of time getting to play major minutes.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, he's a rookie. And so it's like, how much weight or stock do you want to put into a guy that's 20 years old and getting his first like touch of the league, really? Um, but at the same time, if you look at like other rookies from any class of any year, it's kind of a bit of a projection. Like you
Hmm.
kind of tell usually like who's gonna sink/swim. Um, of course, there's always the exception to the rule where guys find their rhythm finally in their third year.
Hmm.
But for the most part, like look at Scottie Barnes, like he was rookie of the year and now he's an all-star. Like, and you can't tell me that, Chet and Wemby are going to be guys that like dip down at any time later on in their
Hmm.
career. So I think that like with Grady, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, okay, he's setting a bit of a bar, and yeah, there is such thing as like a really good rookie year and then a sophomore slump. But at the same time, like overall. It's more like forecasting your overall career.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's just showing reliability from the three. This is something that he also made his entire career off of. Like, this is the reason why the Raptors really drafted him. They wanted a shooter. He's a shooter out of Kansas that can do just a little bit more than shoot. You know, he had the athleticism to drive as well. And like, so I think that's exactly what the type of player that, like, you know, fans can come to expect in his career. And I think he will be a staple for this Raptors team. And I think he's a very, very valuable piece that's still in development. But like, if his development continues to go the way it's going, like, wow, the Raptors might just have one of the best shooters in the league.
And that's just such a perfect fit along Scottie Barnes. I mean, the discussion for a long time now, well, since they kind of drafted him, is he's going to look really good if you can get some knockdown shooters around him. And I think that's really what that could look like with Grady Dick. One of the other new faces that's been fitting in well has been Kelly Olynyk. Now with Jakob Poeltl out, how important is he going to be, you know, going forward for this final, you know, month and a half of basketball?
Yeah, I mean, Kelly has always been like, we know what we've seen from him from like Team Canada. He's a tough guy. He's like, I remember when the Raptors were playing against him, and he's bounced around a few teams. I believe one time he was playing for Detroit, and I just remember just how tough he was. And so I think I'm like, when he signed to Toronto, I was like ecstatic. I was like, yes, inside post presence. He could shoot the three. And he's not backing down. He's not the type of guy that backs down. And so I think that's exactly what the Raptors are getting out of him, especially with Yak being out, which is a huge loss, because I do find that like Yak was really finding his stride in the second half of the season as well. I think in the first half he was a little bit I don't want to say slow, but it was just a little bit like a step behind maybe, or just finding his rhythm there as well. But then, you know, come mid-season, he was putting together some great games. And so so it's kind of like annoying to like see him like, just when things are turning around, this happens again. This happens. And it's completely out of his control, of course. And I don't think the pinky injury to his left hand is going to be that severe. So I'm sure he's going to be back like relatively soon. But in the meantime, like, yeah, Kelly brings one more thing, I feel like, and people don't really talk about, that's playmaking. And it's something that actually Coach Darko and Coach Jama Malalela both pointed out to me when I was speaking to them. One at Jama at the half when Scottie went out, actually, originally from the game before. And, you know, I said, okay, how do you make up for the loss of Scottie? He's like, well, we're going to do more playmaking through Kelly. And at first I was like, Kelly, like, I was thinking like RJ or like IQ or something like that. And he said Kelly. But I was like, it's weird, but it makes sense. Because like, even though, you know, Kelly's technically a 5, like, he has the skill sets that, you know, a power forward could bring too. And like Scottie is kind of like that, once again, that point forward. And so I thought that was interesting. And I think that's exactly what like Kelly can kind of fill the gap in with this time being. And then there's guys like Ochai, who, like, I mean, I was on Raptors Tonight after the game, and I believe it was like Alvin or Sherm that brought up the point that, like, I mean, you kind of see moments with Ochai that kind of resemble a little bit of Scottie, like in the way that he's able to drive, the way that he's able to, you know, when he's shooting well, shoot, and then find his teammates at times too. So like, you know, it's like he has a long way to go to get to like Scottie's level, of course, and he's not as big as Scottie, but like there's definitely guys that can kind of fill that gap. But yeah, I would say Kelly is like the first one that comes to mind now.
Now we've got a little bit over a month of basketball left. The Raptors are, I think last I looked, 3.5 games out of a play-in spot. The team they got to battle with is both Brooklyn, who hasn't been great lately, and then the Atlanta Hawks, who are now also without their star in Trae Young. Do you see the Raptors trying to make a play-in run here, or is it just going to be, you know, they'll play and they'll try to win, but it's not going to be some all-out push?
That's the biggest question, right? Because it's like, especially without these guys, like, how likely is it to make the play-in? Last I checked, which I could probably check again, we were 4 games out of the play-in spot. I think it might be 3 now. I gotta double check. But either way, it's kind of like flirting with that line, and we have a tough like secondary West Coast trip ahead. We're facing Denver and Phoenix. You know, I don't want to say it's a guaranteed win. That's definitely not for sure. But like, you know, the most likely game that they could win is probably like the Portland game.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I think I'm missing one in there as well. But
I think Detroit
way,
at the end there, yeah.
Oh yeah, Detroit. Yeah, okay. So hopefully Detroit.
Fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah. So but yeah, this is the NBA because you can't expect anything. But
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, so it's like I mean, at this point in the season, like I feel like you don't want to say like commit to the tank or anything because I feel like tanking teaches players how to lose. Um, and that's just not the type of team. That's not the type of organization that the Raptors have ever been in the time that at
Mm-hmm.
least I've been alive and conscious of watching them. Maybe like Tampa, but like even that was like not intentional because it's just kind of like the whole season was crazy. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think the goal is to win games and try their best to get into the play-in position. How likely will that be? That's a great question. But like, will they try? For sure. And will they might surprise people? Potentially. I could kind of see it because like the way that the pieces were coming together pre Scottie injury, you know, it was working. But like, and then even last night against Charlotte, and like, you know, Charlotte is who they are, but at the same time, like this is the NBA, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a close game down the stretch. Um, I think they all showed resiliency and fighting. So I wouldn't be surprised, but it would be a bit like on the optimistic side, I think, to expect them to be in the play-in.
And I think from a fan perspective, it's probably more satisfying to watch them at least try to win, and then if they fail, they fail. That's like we've said, it's about development. The real disappointing thing would be to try and lose a bunch of games here in the last month, and then the lottery balls bounce how they do, and you don't even get your pick right with that top 6 protected pick. So there's no real huge incentive for them to completely blow it up, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's the thing, right? Like you see teams like Charlotte that have tanked and have stayed at the bottom of the East, and it hasn't worked out for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could argue, well, a couple cases for, and like look how long it took the Kings to kind of get back into the mix again. Like that's a long time to stay at the bottom of the
Yeah.
league, and you're going to lose a lot of fans and a lot of revenue by doing that. Also, you don't want to teach a losing culture to your organization. I think that's one thing that like the Raptors, like I said, the Raptors organization keeps in mind, or like they don't intentionally tank, because I think like even through this next stretch of like the season here, the Raptors, like this young core, this guys that pro, like without Scottie and stuff, you know, you want to teach them how to win. Like you want to encourage winning, because when Scottie does come back and better, and then you have a whole summer together, like getting like training and pushing yourselves in the off season, you want to come into next season like out of the gate ready to go, with that winning mentality, because um, you want to teach them how to win these tough games. And if you happen to win some, all the merrier. But in the
Mm-hmm.
meantime, like, you know, it's going to be like a lot of learning in the meantime. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Me too. You got to be somewhat optimistic, right? You got to find the silver linings. You mentioned it already. The Raptors going on a bit of a West Coast road trip. You've been the sideline reporter for about a year and a half, almost 2 years now, 2 seasons now. What's been your favorite city so far that you've visited as a sideline reporter?
So whenever I get this question, I'm always like, you got to take some obvious cities off the table. Like you
Yeah.
can't say New York, can't say
Fair.
LA, you can't say Miami.
Uh huh.
Like
Yeah.
those are off the table. Like, what's left? I would even say you can't say Chicago because it's like pretty much Toronto.
Yeah.
Um, I would say like if those ones are off the table, then I'm looking at actually like my sleeper has always been Washington,
Oh.
which is surprising because we stay like in Georgetown,
Hmm.
and it's so pretty. There's a
Really?
lot of fun things to do, like for evening, like there's lots of restaurants, lots of bars, like there's music, like and like it has like a really cool energy. It's not far from Georgetown University, so it's kind of a bit of a college scene.
Mhm.
But it's away enough and close enough to Washington. Like I walked to the White House, and like I thought that was like the coolest experience of my life. So I think that like Washington's probably one of my like sleeper picks outside of like the obvious
Mhm.
locations that typically everybody would like.
Do you get much time to really like go out and see a city when you get there, or is it pretty much go to the hotel, go to the arena, go to the airport?
It really depends.
Mhm.
Because there's like some times where like for example, like last year Orlando, we were there for like 3.5 days, almost 4 days. And so we stayed at a really nice like resort basically, just like a little bit off of like the main city. But then this year with Orlando, we were literally there for like a night. So we stayed right in a place right close to the arena. Um, and so like would never have a chance to like really explore the city there. So it really depends on how many nights. And then this past road trip, we were in Indiana. Like we played Atlanta, then like on the Friday, and then we had Indiana on Monday. So there's basically a whole weekend. And so we flew to Indiana and we stayed the entire weekend. So, I had more than enough time for myself to explore and appreciate the qualities of Indiana.
Nice. I was in Indiana not too long ago, but more closer to Chicago than the big city
Okay.
there. But yeah, nice area, you know. So it's like we said, it's been 2 years now as sideline reporter. What's been one of the highlights or some of the highlights so far here, 2 years in?
There's so many highlights. Oh my gosh. Like, just like, feel like just being able to, one, like, this is my dream job. So, like, just being able to do the job that I've always, like, wanted is just, like, a blessing into itself. And then, like, I love the fact that I'm able to travel around, like, North America and see a lot of the major cities. Like, that's something that my parents pointed out. They're like, you've done more traveling than, like, both of us combined just by, like, your job. And I was like, true. I never, like, even thought of it like that. Um, and then just the people that I work with, like, you know, like I have a really great broadcast crew. Like and not just like the guys in front of the camera, but also guys behind the scenes that people don't even recognize, like our director, producer, um, and like everybody, like replay, like there's a lot of people, cameramen, and then of course like the staff for the Toronto Raptors, like it's very much a family culture. And so, like last year I was getting to know everybody and everybody was getting to know me. They kind of like maybe suss you out a little bit, but then like when they like, like, oh, she's cool, then like it's a lot of fun and like you feel like you're part of the family. And then of course like the players are really, really great. Like they're really, really nice guys. And so that just kind of makes like it's like any job. Like when your coworkers are great to work with, um, you kind of look forward to work. And so that's kind of like what my situation like I love about the job for sure.
Has there been any sort of pinch me moments yet so far?
I'm the worst because I will have them and forget.
That's okay.
um
That's okay. The first game must have been pretty cool. The first game you got to do must have been a unique experience for sure.
yeah, first game, yeah, that's definitely like a standout. I feel like I was super super nervous. I was like trying to tell myself, you're not nervous, you're fine. I was so nervous. Because you're on the big stage and you don't want to mess up, and there's a lot of eyes and attention, and everybody. And but so yeah, so first game, trying to think. There's definitely been celebrities at games where it's like, oh, this is so cool. Like, oh, I saw like Jennifer Hudson when we were down in LA, like with what was it, Coolio? Yeah, it was Coolio. And then who else? We had like Austin Matthews was at the game the other day, like in Toronto, which he's not. He's a relatively like a regular.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, I think it's just cool to be in the building with some like celebrities, but like I'm also like not super like a fangirl or nothing. I think it's
Mhm,
just one
mhm.
of those like, oh, nice, and then like keep it moving. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think, but I'm gonna, it's gonna be bad. I'm gonna leave this podcast and then I'm gonna think my biggest pinch. I'm like, I should have said that. So yeah, damn,
That's
yeah.
okay. Has there been anything that's kind of like surprised you with the job? Because I feel like it's not something you can really like. It's a very unique a position that's not that you're not prepared for it. Obviously, you were prepared for it, but like the work itself is just like so unique to any other thing, really, even in journalism.
Yeah. It's funny because I've been a reporter for like other teams and at other levels, like 905, CBL. I've hosted Raptors Today before for a couple of years there as well, and this is just non-comparable. It's just like it's a moving train, and like the ins and outs and the intricacies of this job, like the way that you have to build a lot of trust between the staff and the players, and the way that you have to like get used to not seeing your friends and your family. Like last year, I saw my parents in October and I didn't see them until April. Like,
Wow.
This year I've gotten a little bit better. Their schedule is a little bit better, so I was able to see them like 2 more times in between. And so like there's just like the schedule's a little crazy. And then I think that like, when you're public facing and like you're on the broadcast, people like they it's funny. I love it personally, but people feel like they know you. And so like they might just like come up to you or like they like or whatever, and I'm like, "Oh, cool. Like you watch on." And it's so funny because like it hasn't registered to me because like, whenever I'm like on air or doing anything, and it's funny because I have a TikTok, right? And I during the pandemic, I created a TikTok account and like it wasn't even anything sports related. So don't go there if you're not looking for sports. But like it got relatively big, but like in my head, I'm like, I'm just talking to a camera. I'm not talking to like any of these people watching. Like I'm just talking to a camera. So even when I'm like on like the broadcast, I see my cameraman and I feel like I'm talking to him more so than I'm like talking to Canada. So, but like that's like the uniqueness of the job too. It's like, no, like you're actually like in everybody's living room right now. And so
across Canada.
Yeah, which is like surreal to say, and I feel like so blessed and fortunate to like do that because like once again, it's like a dream come true. But it's definitely it's a unique part of your job. Like if you like a lot of my friends like are like 9-to-5ers, and they they have their job, but it's not public facing like that. So if they make any mistakes, nobody knows. But like if I make a mistake, then everybody knows. Like
the emails are coming in, the tweets come in. Oh yeah.
I've gotten a few tweets. I'm actually really I feel like I'm very lucky. I don't get a whole lot of like haterism or nothing.
That's
I think
good.
I got like one tweet that called me fat one time, and I was like, I'm like, I made it. So yeah, that was actually fun. I relatively enjoyed that one.
That's a good attitude to have. Back to the basketball just for a second. We've got, like we've said, about a month left. What are you hoping to see from the Raptors in this final stretch here? Acknowledging that Scottie Barnes may or may not be here for the rest of the season, and what are you hoping to see here going forward?
I mean, I just want to see them compete. I want to see this group refine and learn and just like get to know each other. There's like you said, like 20 games left in the season. That's not like a whole lot of time, but it's enough time to like be able to get on a solid start for next season. And so like treat these next 20 games like it's almost like it's like your preseason training camp, but you're in actual competition, but you're just trying to learn everything that you can about each other. So I just really want to see them like compete, stay aggressive, try to win games, and learn through winning. I was telling Alvin Williams this last night and Sherm that the interesting thing about second, my cat, I have a cat. The interesting thing about winning and learning is the fact that players tend to be more receptive to feedback when they're winning, because you could say, hey, you're doing great, you still got the job done, but now let's fix this to be better. Versus losing, it's like, we're not good, we didn't win. Like, And this is why. And it's almost a bit more almost like the tone it feels like, and I'm sure like the Raptors coaches are really good, of course, but like
Mhm.
it can come off a bit more aggressive or attacking, maybe if somebody could take it that way. So it's like building constructively in both scenarios, of course, because losing you definitely point out the flaws, but winning is like we're still good, but we still have flaws, so let's just refine this. And so I feel like that's kind of like in the next 20 games is going to be really important to like just do a lot of like self-evaluation on top of like team togetherness and like see how they can be better, like literally just gearing up for next season to come.
Yeah, that was going to be my last question, but you made me think of another question here. You mentioned the coaching staff. How do you feel Darko's been able to connect with the team so far this season?
Yeah, Coach Rajakovic has been like I really really appreciate his mind for the game. I think he's really been great considering the circumstances he got thrown into in his first year as a head coach. Um, I think that he has like a very like great basketball like knowledge base. You could tell he has a degree in basketball. Um, and he has a great support staff too, like Jama Malalela, who like has known this organization inside and out, who went to the Warriors, who came back to be like one of the lead assistants for Darko. Like he's his right hand man. All the time I see them chatting, going over film together before they talk to the players. Um, I think Darko's has had to adjust to like 3 or 4 different rosters this year, and how they're
Mhm.
used. And whenever I talk to Darko, I'm always like asking him like, what's the balance basically between like coaching stylistically for the team versus for like the principles that you're trying to instill no matter who the team is. And he's like, yeah,
Mhm.
like that's always a balance, it's always a challenge. And so I think the fact that like this team has been able to, you know, even string together some wins in the first place, considering all the radical changes. And if you think about it, like there's not a whole lot of teams that, trade their franchise player in the middle of a season and then expect their team to win. Like,
Mhm.
so I think that like, I think as like the fan base and everybody should be like giving Darko like a little bit of grace.
Mhm.
And I think the real evaluation for this coach starts next year when the dust settles, and the team is able to come together, and then that's kind of where we get a better look. But in the meantime, he's been a development guy. Like that was his reputation as an assistant, and I think he's definitely bringing that to this season. Because if you even look at like, I mean, I'm not saying that he's the reason why Scottie developed and got better, because Scottie was already on track to do that. But he definitely encouraged Scottie to like, hey, take more threes. In fact, we could set this offense up
Mhm.
so that you could take more threes. And now as a result, Scottie's 3-point percentage almost jumped by 10% this year. Um, you saw RJ Barrett coming from a situation in New York that was not serving him, and now he's thriving here at the Raptors. Same thing with IQ. Like, there's a lot of individual situations where these guys were not performing as to the capacity that they could. Where
Mhm.
now, I think at the very least, they feel empowered to. And I think that's because like Darko's also a really positive guy. Like he's like, just play with joy. Like every single time I talk to the players, like they're not just saying it for the cameras. Like, no, Darko literally tells them to play with joy. You're playing basketball. Like, be happy. And I think that's something that I think that can get lost in the mix of things. And I think that's like one of the special qualities that Darko brings, like development, a reminder to be positive and keep growing. So I personally am a big fan of his coaching style, especially with the ball movement. I
Mhm.
think next year when it all comes together, like how do you stop a team that has like a lot of great skilled players, refined players, but then they also pass the ball like every second, basically. Like a 0.5 seconds if you want to get specific. But like, yeah, so I think that's gonna be when it comes into fruition, like the whole scheme of things, I think we're gonna look at a really solid group next year. But like I'm personally saving my final judgment till next season.
That's fair. That's fair. It's been really interesting to see just how like completely different the offense has been this year. And like you said, it's still, with all those moving pieces, it probably hasn't been implemented in the way you could where if you had an off season and you had all that practice time. So and it's still been good. Like the assist numbers are like record numbers for the team. It's been really exciting to see that. So I think yeah, you're right. It will be really interesting to see what he does with an off season. Practices, like you mentioned, those are helpful apparently to getting better at basketball practices as much as I disagreed when I was in
Practice.
high school.
Talk about practice.
Oh, I don't miss the 6 a.m. practices, that's for sure.
Mm. Where did you?
I only played in high school, so I played in
Okay.
a small little private school in Fredericton, but we were okay. We stood our ground. We won our humble brag, our AA division championship. So first one in
Nice.
school history for all the viewers out there who are big New Brunswick basketball fans. I'm sure they are. But yeah, no, it's practice is actually a very helpful thing to get better at basketball. So I'm looking forward to that. But Savanna, I've already taken up lots of your time. I appreciate you being willing to come on and chat, and we'll hear lots more from you on the sidelines as the season goes on. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much. You're a really great host.